Welcome, folks. My name is Tom Beatty. I am the chair of the Web Design and Development program at Newmont College of Computer Science, and today we're going to learn about Express using node.js. Okay, folks, we're going to work with forms in Express this time, and we're still going to use Pug, just like we did in the last demo. First thing I need to do is go ahead and set up a new project. I'm going to hit npm init, which we've done many times before. I'm already I've created an Express Forms folder, and I'm already inside of that, so make sure you're in there before you do npm init. But it wants to name it Express Forms because that's the name of the folder. I'm going to hit enter, 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 take all the defaults here. And is this okay? Yes. And it has created a package.json. Now we need to go ahead and install the dependencies that we're going to need. And so I'm going to do, I could do either npm install, or as you know from previous videos, npm I works just fine. And I need a few things. I'm going to need, of course, Express and Pug, like we've used in the past. But when dealing with forms, you also want to get the body parser. It's body-parser. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it's going to install Express, Pug, and the body parser into this project. And it will create a node modules folder. You should be familiar with all that by now. Okay, it's all installed. Let's go and work with this. We're going to need some new folders. We'll need a views folder to hold our Pug stuff. We're going to need a public folder, and I just put that inside my views accidentally. Let me move it right on out. And let's create a routes folder. It's always a nice thing to have. And I think we're good for the moment. Inside the routes folder, I'll create a routes.js. And outside of the routes folder, in the root area here, I'm going to go ahead and create a index.js. And let's start coding a little bit here. Make that a little bit bigger so everyone can see what I'm doing. I'm going to say const express equals require express const pug equals require pug const, and here we're going to go ahead and require the body parser. And convention says what you do is you can't have capital letters in module names, so usually they'll use hyphens if it's multiple words, and convention is to switch it to camel case. So let's go ahead and do body-parser, because that's the name of the package, but we're going to have it require it into a const named body parser. Instead of the dash, we will use camel case where we capitalize the second word. And then let's put in our path. If you don't know why we're doing that, then I would recommend taking a look at the last video where we talk about adding Pug to Express. And we'll create a routes folder. We'll bring in routes from the routes folder. Const app equals express app.set. We got to set our view engine, and that's going to be Pug. App.set. Let it know where our views folder is going to be. Dir name plus /views app.use express.static. I'm not talking about all these in detail at the moment because we did it all in the last video. So again, if you are lost on this, then please go back, look at the previous video. Should get you up to speed pretty quickly, I imagine. Okay, so I've got my view engine set to pug. I've got my views directory set to hold all our pug files, and I've set up our static directory, which is going to be public, and that's where our static files can go if we have any. All right, now we need to get the body parser working. So we need URL encoded parser equals body parser dot URL encoded, and we do have one parameter that we want to set here. It's an object that contains extended true. All right, so our body parser is now set up, and we'll use that when we pass data in from the form. It will parse that data so that it's easily accessible. All right, so in here we just have a few more things to do. Let's do our app.get. So if they go to the root directory, we'll have it run routes.index. And I know we haven't created routes.index, but we will. I'm going to put an app.listen down here, and we will listen on port 3000. So I'll save that. Let's go to our routes, and we will create our exports.index. Request, response, and we're going to respond by rendering out our index.pug. Haven't created that yet either, but we will. Okay. And let's pass in, we'll pass in a title. Maybe the title will be home. Okay, we'll save that. Now we go to our views, and we need definitely a couple of views. We're going to need a layout.pug. Remember, that's the basic template that we use that all other pages can be plugged into. And we know we're going to need an index.pug because we've already said that we're going to do that whenever anyone goes to / it'll run the index, which renders index. So, all right. So let's start, I guess, with the layout. And the layout we'll keep pretty simple for this one. We'll say, well, let's put our doc type HTML, and in there we have a head, and we have a body, and in the head let's pass in the title, which in this case will be home when we do index.pug, but if we have other pages it can plug in a different title. And then in the body we'll just pass in our block content that will be defined in our index.pug. Again, if you are unfamiliar with what I'm doing here, take a look at the previous video. I go through it in a bit of detail. Okay, index.pug. Let's go ahead and say extends layout, so it uses the layout and plugs it in there. And we've got our block content. And here we're going to build a form. And so first let's put a H3 and pass our title in there just so that we've got a title on the page. And we're going to put a form on this page, and the form, we'll give it an ID, and the ID is form. And the method is going to be, it's going to use the HTTP method of post, we've been using get. And we've dealt with that on the Express side doing an app.get. So you can imagine here when we deal with form data, we're going to do an app.post. And we'll get to that soon. So action. And so when this happens, our action is going to be to go to /submitted. Now inside our form, let's put a paragraph. And we'll put name. And I'm going to use here an HTML special character. So I'm going to do ampersand NBSP semicolon. That stands for non-breaking space, because spaces don't always show up the way that you'd expect in HTML. So this ensures that I'm going to have a non-breaking space after the name. And then we'll put an input. Type equals text. This will create an input field that takes text, and the name of that will be name. And let's put together another input. So another non-breaking space, and our input type equals text. And the name of this one is going to be age. And we're going to use these names to refer to the data when, after it gets submitted, we'll be able to access that data. Species, ampersand, non-breaking space. We'll put another input. I'll just do text here, so you can put whatever you want in. I suppose I could do it some sort of drop down or something, but this will work for this demo. Okay, now the only other thing that we need here is a submit button. And I'm just actually going to use a regular submit button. So input type, helps if I spell it correctly, submit value equals send it, exclamation point. All right, that's my form. That's everything that I need for index.pug. I'm not going to worry about styling or using CSS. It's a form. It may not be pretty, but it will work. Okay, so I'm going to need, I said here in the action that we're going to go to /submitted, so we probably need some sort of information there as well. And so let's create submitted.pug and extends layout, block content, and for now I'm just going to put a blank paragraph. I'm going to have some things in there, maybe. Well, I'll do this. I'm going to put a div there, and I'll save that div. Well, I'll save the whole pug page. Okay, so we've got some pug files created. We've got a layout, we've got index, and we've got part of a submitted page. Let's go back here to our index.js. We've got the form, and we know the form is going to post to /submitted. So I'm going to go ahead and do an app.post /submitted. So when someone posts something, that's not using a URL, and this isn't a GET request. This is a HTTP method post, which often those come in from forms. But when someone posts to /submitted, then we need to do something. And what we're going to do is, the first thing is we're going to tell it to run some middleware here. It's going to run it through the URL encoded parser that we defined here. This is part of the body parser that we have installed and required. And then we'll go to routes, and we'll create a function there called deal with data. I think that's all we'll do here. Now, of course, since when someone posts to submitted, it's going to run routes deal with data, we should probably go ahead and write that too. So exports deal with data equals request response and let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's go ahead and we're going to create an object here. Let person, and we'll give the person a name, and we are going to pass in request.body.name. That's actually going to take the data that's in the name field, and we're going to pass it into person name. And we'll do the same thing with our age, so request.body.age, and species request.body.species. So it's getting all this data from the form that's been submitted. And then once it has it, we'll do a response.render, and we'll render the submitted pug page. And we're going to pass person in there. And you might be tempted to do something like that, and that's perfectly valid code. We take this person and we pass it to submitted as this variable person. But in ES 2015, they made some changes. So when you pass in a variable where when you're using key value pairs in an object like this, if the key and the value are the same, have the same name, you can actually just get rid of the value, and it knows I am trying to pass person into person. So I'm going to save that. And so my routes is all done. The only other thing that I need to do at this point is come on over to submitted, and I left a div out here. And I want to do something with that. I'm going to say div equals, I passed in person, so I could go ahead and plug that name in there if I wanted to. And I could even create another div and pass in the age, and another div to pass in the species. Now let's see how all this comes out. We've got our form, and when we post our form to submitted, it's going to parse the data, and it's going to run this deal with data that's in routes. And in deal with data, it's going to take that data and it's going to plug it into some variables. It's going to render submitted and output them on the end page. So what's really happening is we've got a form that Pug creates, pushes it to the front end, user fills it out, submits it, it goes back to the back end, to the server, and then that data is collected and used to create this submitted page and pushes it back to the front end again. So let's see this in action. I can do npm, well, excuse me, I can do a nodemon, get this up and running, and now can go to localhost :3000. Here's my form, and I could say hello. Well, let's do Bob. Bob, 21, species, zombie. Send it. Ooh. There it goes. It sent it to the back end. The back end processed it, created those divs that say Bob 21 zombie. And if I hit F12 right now and I look at the elements, you know, maybe your F12 brings up console. You want to look at the elements here. And you can see it created divs. First one contains Bob, the second one contains 21, and the third one contains zombie. And there you have it. So that is a basic form done using Express. All right, if you like this video, please hit subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. I will provide more content in the future and keep it entertaining for you. Thanks a lot.